I got to ask you, you played with Kobe. You played against Mike. One-on-one in their prime, who's better, you think?
I mean, that's not even that's hands down. I mean, people I give Kobe's props. I think he came in young. So him and Eddie Jones were on the Lakers together. That's all I remember is playing against those two. So both of those guys didn't want to even see me his first 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, you killed him.
He grew up, took over the league.
Yeah.
Give him all his, right? You know, I give him props. Mike is a whole different thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a whole...
So you saw Kobe as like a puppy.
I mean, I knew
he was
I
young.
put it like this, man, I see him as a puppy.
Yeah.
So 18 to 22, he was learning his way.
Right.
He was raw.
He was nice.
And I was still like, that's the nicest 18-year-old I ever played against.
Yeah.
But I was 24, 25, I was a full-grown man, so I was like,
whatever.
I'm going to serve this kid right now. I don't care who he is. So he went through that.
Yeah.
But what I like about Kobe is that when I got to the Lakers, he was like, let's play one-on-one. I was like, I'm just getting in shape, let me get my body right. I'll get with you in about 30 days. It was training camp.
Yeah.
And he was serious. He's like, let's go one-on-one. And his whole thing, what he told me later, was like, I remember when you used to go at me.
Yeah.
And that's his way of coming back at me. I grew up. I've been honing my skills. I'm ready. So I respect him, and I think he's the Don Dada for that.
Of course.
But Mike is a whole different thing. So I had to guard them both, and it's not even like Mike, let me go to sleep tonight. Let me chill. Let me rest the next day. Let me stay focused. Let me eat the right things.
Yeah.
Kobe, not saying that you had to switch it up, but I didn't have that fear.
Yeah.
Mike would have, you better bring your game. I can
You
go
had
for
Mike in
50
his
tonight.
prime.
Oh, yeah, Mike in his prime. We went at it toe to toe, head to head. Mike
I know,
loved
yeah,
me.
of course.
Mike was like, man, you never back down. You strong.
Yeah.
Hops, I love you.
Yeah.
God, he put me in his all-star games. Him and Mike loved me, as far as
That's
where I
amazing.
used to come. But Mike is the best player in the world ever. LeBron, Kobe, nobody can fade that.
Yeah.
Nobody can fade.
You played with Kobe. You played against Mike in their prime. Who's better? That's not even close. Mike is a whole different thing. Isaiah J.R. Ryder. It's a familiar question, but that answer, short, cold, absolute, carries the weight of an entire era of truth. Because when someone who once stood on the same floor, breathing the same air, looking straight into Michael Jordan's eyes says, not even close. You don't need statistics anymore. J.R. Ryder isn't a fanboy, a commentator, or a guy armed with highlight reels. He's a street-bred warrior, someone who lived it, bled for it, and burned through the toughest years when the NBA was still a battlefield, not a brand. And when he speaks, it doesn't sound like nostalgia. It sounds like truth carved into bone. He played with Kobe. He battled against Jordan. He saw two mountains, one rising, one already ruling, and he understood. The distance between them couldn't be measured in points or stats, but in the gravity of presence. Jordan wasn't just an opponent. He was a law of nature, an invisible force that shaped the game itself. Kobe, as extraordinary as he was, spent his life learning how to challenge that gravity. Ryder didn't say it to diminish Kobe. In fact, he respected him, called him the dawn of his generation. But within the hearts of those who truly faced Jordan, there's a boundary that words cannot cross. It's a mix of fear and reverence, the kind that makes even the toughest men bow their heads at the sound of Mike. Some legends are born from stories, some are built by media, but only one was forged in sweat, blood, and the eyes of those he destroyed. Michael Jordan. J.R. Ryder doesn't speak with admiration. He speaks with the silence of a man who survived. And in that silence, you can hear a truth echo that's as sharp as it is undeniable. Anyone who's ever faced Jordan stops believing in fairness. When Kobe was still a puppy, Kobe was a puppy. The nicest 8-year-old I ever played against. Isaiah J.R. Ryder. In a world full of predators, Jordan was the lion, and young Kobe Bryant was a lone wolf pup just learning how to hunt. He had fangs, he had that stare, and he had the arrogance of someone born to chase greatness. But when J.R. Ryder first faced him, Ryder was already a full-grown man, 25 years old, strong, confident, and fully aware of how to tear apart someone's inexperience. J.R. said bluntly, I was a full-grown man. I told myself I'ma serve this kid right now. I don't care who he is. And he did. At that time, Kobe was 18 or 19, still trying to prove himself in a league filled with men who had bled for everything they earned. Ryder remembered, Kobe was the best young player I'd ever played against, but he was still a kid with enormous hunger but not yet enough scars to understand what pain really teaches. But a few years later, when Ryder joined the Lakers, he realized what made Kobe different from everyone else. Memory. Kobe never forgot anything. He remembered every battle, every embarrassment, every lesson. He remembered the times Ryder gave him a taste of manhood he wasn't ready for. And when they met again, Kobe didn't smile, didn't exchange pleasantries. He just looked straight at Ryder and said, "Let's play one-on-one." Ryder laughed. "Man, I'm just getting back in shape. Give me 30 days. But Kobe didn't laugh. He was dead serious. Because to Kobe, every defeat was a debt, and only sweat, blood, and victory could pay it off. J.R. Ryder recalled that moment with genuine respect. "That's why I respect him." He remembered when I used to go at him. And that was his way of coming back at me. Kobe didn't just want to win. He wanted to prove that he had become the man he once feared. And that's when J.R. realized Kobe Bryant wasn't just a rising talent. He was a spark left behind by Michael Jordan. A small ember that was slowly becoming the fire we'd one day call the Black Mamba. If Jordan was the one who taught the world how to dominate, then Kobe was the one who learned how to suffer to become immortal. Not everyone could see it, but J.R. Ryder did. Because in that young man's eyes, he saw the same light he'd once seen in Jordan's. It wasn't the look of someone who wanted to win. It was the look of someone who refused to exist without winning. Mike is a whole different thing. Mike's a whole different thing. Isaiah J.R. Ryder. When J.R. Ryder talks about Kobe, there's respect. When he talks about Jordan, there's reverence. The tone changes slower, heavier, like a man describing a force of nature, not a human being. Playing against Kobe, J.R. said, you could show up, play your game, go home, and sleep fine. But with Jordan, you had to prepare your soul. J.R. put it simply, with Mike, I had to go home early. I had to eat right. I had to rest right. Because when you play him, you better bring your game. Jordan didn't just require skill, he demanded discipline. You couldn't walk onto the court casual. You couldn't coast. Because Jordan didn't just play you, he studied you, dissected you, and exposed you. That's what Ryder meant when he said, Mike was different. Jordan wasn't just another opponent you could game plan for. He was a test of will, of focus, of what you were made of when everything inside you screamed to quit. Most players brought strategy. Jordan brought ritual. Playing him wasn't a game. It was a ceremony, one where your pride, your composure, and your manhood were all on trial. He didn't need to talk trash to make you feel small. His silence did that for him. A glance from Jordan could rearrange your confidence. One look, and you'd suddenly start questioning yourself. Do I really belong here? And if you showed weakness even for a second, he'd smell it. He'd circle you like a predator. Patient and precise. You could feel the air shift when he locked in. That moment when the smile faded and the eyes sharpened. Every player who's ever faced him describes it the same way. The world got quieter, and the game got smaller. For Ryder, the realization was humbling. You didn't just prepare your body to face Jordan, you had to prepare your being. He forced you to eat clean, think sharp, and live right, because somewhere deep down, you believed if you didn't, he would destroy you. That was the power of Jordan, the difference between competition and confrontation. He wasn't trying to beat you. He was trying to break your rhythm, your breath, your belief. And when J.R. Ryder says, Mike's a whole different thing, he's not talking about points or trophies. He's talking about a presence that changes the rules of reality. Jordan didn't just dominate the game, he made you play by his laws. Fire and blood, when Jordan turned the court into a mind game. Jordan didn't just beat you, he made you question who you were. Michael Jordan never needed to shout. He didn't need to trash talk to make you feel small. His existence was intimidation incarnate. Every step, every glance, every pause carried a message. You don't belong here unless I decide you do. J.R. Ryder had seen hundreds of competitors fearless, talented, even arrogant, but none who could alter the emotional gravity of a room the way Jordan did. When he walked in, the atmosphere changed. You could feel it in your lungs. The arena got quieter. The air got heavier. And every man on the court, even the stars, became aware that they were standing in someone else's kingdom. Jordan didn't fight with muscles. He fought with control. He would study your habits, your tics, your ego, and then dismantle them, one by one. He'd look at you a certain way after a missed shot, and suddenly, that next jumper felt 10 pounds heavier. He'd smile at you after a make, and it wasn't joy, it was warning. He was telling you, you just woke something up you can't handle. That's why J.R. Ryder called him different. Jordan didn't need to chase motivation. He created it out of thin air, out of disrespect, out of silence. He used your confidence as fuel for his destruction. He weaponized focus. He lived inside your head. Mike would look at you, and you'd feel it, Ryder said. Like he was reading your soul. That's what separated him from everyone else. Most players relied on rhythm. Jordan relied on pressure, a kind of divine tension that made everyone around him nervous, including his teammates. He didn't just raise the standard. He became the standard, and anyone who couldn't survive it was left behind. Even legends like J.R. Ryder admit it. Mike made me better, but he also made me scared to be less. That's how he broke people, not through humiliation, but through expectation. He didn't have to humiliate you. He just forced you to confront your limits and then crossed them right in front of you. Every game was a psychological war. Jordan didn't play against you. He played through you using your emotions, your reactions, your ego as part of his strategy. And when you finally cracked, he didn't gloat. He just nodded the same way a teacher nods when a lesson is over. He was ruthless, yes, but behind that ruthlessness was purity. Jordan didn't destroy people out of hatred. He destroyed them out of principle. Because in his mind, there was one sacred law. If you step onto my court, you owe this game your soul. That's why his opponents remember him not just as a man, but as an atmosphere. He changed the emotional temperature of the game. He turned basketball into psychology on fire, a collision between fear and faith, will and weakness. And that's why J.R. Ryder could only describe him in one way. Mike wasn't a man, he was a feeling of fire, a feeling of blood, a feeling of truth so raw it burned through excuses, left scars, and purified the sport itself. The law of Jordan, the difference of an era. Mike, the best player in the world ever. LeBron, Kobe, nobody can fade that. Isaiah, J.R. Ryder. In every era, there are stars, but there was only one man whose presence was so absolute it became a law. And in the 1,990 seconds, that law had a name: Michael Jordan. J.R. Ryder had seen both sides, the Kobe generation chasing shadows and the Jordan generation living under them. He understood that Jordan didn't just dominate the league. He defined the limits of human performance for an entire era of men. Those who came after weren't trying to beat him. They were just trying to survive the standard he created. Back then, basketball wasn't entertainment. It was a test of character. No load management, no social media PR teams, no safety nets for failure. You either stood your ground or you got erased. Every night was war, and Jordan was the commander who never lost a battle of will. Players didn't just prepare to face him. They prepared to face themselves. Because Jordan didn't expose your weakness in public. He forced you to see it in private, in your diet, your focus, your sleep, your heart. Even the strongest men carried his ghost home after games, asking themselves, did I bring everything I had? That's what made the 90 seconds sacred. It wasn't just talent, it was accountability. You couldn't fake hunger. You couldn't hide fear. And no matter who you were, a superstar, an all-star, or a rookie, when you saw Jordan, you adjusted your reality. Today's league has highlights, data, and debate. But back then, they had Michael Jordan, and that was enough. There was an unspoken rule that every player learned the hard way. You don't talk to Jordan unless you're ready for consequences. You don't wake him up. You don't provoke him. You just do your job, pray for mercy, and thank God when he doesn't take it personally. That's what J.R. Ryder meant when he said, there are rules in this game and Mike wrote them. He wasn't speaking metaphorically. Jordan literally redefined the unwritten code of competition. He restored the sacred fear that every great sport needs, the kind of respect that keeps you humble, hungry, and awake at night. He wasn't the league's hero. He was its gravity. Everything from defense to offense, from marketing to mentality bent toward him. The game didn't move without his pull. And in that gravity, something remarkable happened. Every man who faced him grew sharper. Some broke, some rose, but none stayed the same. That's why when old players speak about Jordan, their tone changes. It's not nostalgia, it's testimony. Because they didn't just watch history, they survived it. Jordan's era was more than basketball. It was an initiation, a time when greatness wasn't measured in numbers, but in how much pain you could endure chasing perfection. And in that brutal, beautiful furnace, Jordan became not just the greatest player, but the man who wrote the rules for what greatness should feel like. The last flight from Wizards to eternity. There comes a point in every legend's life when the body fades, but the soul refuses to. For Michael Jordan, that moment arrived not in Chicago, but in Washington. To many, it looked like the quiet twilight of a fallen god. To those who understood what greatness truly means, it was the final revelation. At nearly 40, the legs were slower, the lift lower, but his standard, that inner flame, never dimmed. He still averaged 20 points a game, not because his body allowed it, but because his will demanded it. He no longer played to dominate the world. He played to honor what the game had made of him. Every jumper, every fadeaway, every bead of sweat was a message to time itself. "You can take my body, but you can't touch my discipline." The Wizards' years weren't about highlights. They were about humility, the kind of humility that only the truly great ever find. Jordan didn't return to prove he could still win. He returned to show what it means to never stop earning your name. Even stripped of his dynasty, his coach, and his throne, he was still the standard. Opponents didn't guard him the way they guarded others. They guarded him like a memory, with reverence, fear, and disbelief that the myth still breathed among them. Because even at 40, when Jordan walked onto the floor, the air shifted. The arena knew. The game knew. And the players, even the young ones, felt that invisible law again. This is still his court. That's the difference between Jordan and everyone else. LeBron plays for history. Jordan is history. LeBron extends time. Jordan transcends it. His return with the Wizards wasn't a comeback. It was a sermon. A sermon about endurance, pride, and the dignity of finishing your story on your own terms. He didn't fade away quietly. He stood, played, bled, and bowed. Not to the league, but to the game itself. And that's why his final act was never a fall. It was a translation from mortal excellence to eternal symbol. He was no longer chasing championships. He was teaching us what greatness looks like when stripped bare, when there are no rings left to win, no applause left to chase, only the mirror and the man who never lied to it. That's what makes Michael Jordan eternal. He didn't end his story with glory. He ended it with truth. Because true greatness doesn't die with time. It becomes time's measure. He wasn't just the greatest of all time. He was the reason time had to measure greatness at all. And long after the cheers fade, long after the numbers are surpassed, there will still be one silhouette, mid-air, tongue out, knees bent, defying both gravity and mortality, reminding the world that perfection once existed, and it wore the number 23.